Welcome to Beyond the Dragon, where we explore indie tabletop role-playing games and their design, to inspire you to play them or take what you like for your own creations. Hi there, my name's Oscar C. Tango.
And my name's Son.
We're both tabletop game designers and professional game masters who love TTRPGs. Today we will be discussing the Mecha Hack. The Mecha Hack
Indeed.
is a rules-light mech combat game by Absolute Tabletop. Published on May 25th, 2018, the game is based on the Black Hack, possibly the first edition based on the markings on the actual image compared to the cover of the first edition of the Black Hack, but I can't find anything to specifically state which edition of the Black Hack it's based on, so don't quote me on that one. The game clocks in at about 48 pages in length and costs around $7 US on DriveThruRPG. The game claims to be both miniature and theater of the mind capable, with a focus on narrative combat. The game does not need any other rules to play, so no need to buy the Black Hack if you don't feel like it. The game runs on a D20 roll-under system. You test an attribute by rolling a D20, and if you roll under, you succeed. Equal to or greater is a failure, which is the first time we've actually seen this in a roll-under system here. And in my case, ever. The attributes are power for things like shooting a beam rifle, pushing over a falling building, holding steady when rammed. Mobility is to dodge, sneak, and parry. Systems is to scan, detect weak points, jam enemy comms. And presence is to intimidate, inspire, or overcome fear. The game features a 5e-ish familiar, disadvantage and advantage type system, taking the more favorable for advantage and less favorable for disadvantage. However, as it is a roll under system, you take the lower roll for advantage, which maybe take a bit of getting used to for people who are not used to this kind of thing. Modifying rolls are also handled differently from how I've normally seen roll under systems handle them. You add the modifier to your roll, meaning that you will have rolled a higher die and done worse. So an attack done at +2 is the same as making an attack done at -2 in a roll over system. It does make sense, but more commonly you find that you add the modifiers to the target number, which I personally find to be a bit more intuitive. The game has two types of class. Your mech chassis and your pilot type. It's a very interesting combo. Pilot is somewhat comparable to the ancestries of Pathfinder 2E, granting attributes, bonuses, and the chassis is more like a class in games like Pathfinder, giving you very specific things you can use, as well as some amount of skills and abilities. And also something very amazing is that pilot backgrounds giving stat bonuses manages to avoid a lot of the issues of systems that tend to have ancestries giving you stat boosts, because pilot's just about training. So of course you'd have things you're better at. The pilot does also grant a unique ability. Son, what do you think about the Mecha Hack?
I really enjoy the Mecha Hack. No surprise to you, definitely. Um, this was my introduction to the Black Hack. I read the Mecha Hack first. I was aware of the Black Hack and everything about it, but I read the Mecha Hack first, not knowing it was a Black Hack. And really enjoyed it. And that's when I went back to the Black Hack and looked at a couple other things. I really enjoy the Mech Hack for what it is. It's a nice, streamlined, really quick, really easy to play mech game. I love how it's written. To me, it's written in a very easy and fun way to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I can read, unlike a lot of other games, I can read the Mecha Hack and forget that I've just finished the book because of how quick it is to read.
It is
Not
very,
because
very
it's
breezy.
short sentences, but yeah, it's just easy.
No, I definitely agree. Having read this game after spending a few hours reading a different game that's not related to mechs or anything, I was just reading another game. I was like, oh my god, my eyes are just flying over the page. I don't feel like I'm going blind. This is what Sun means when he bitches about type, like font choice and, like layout, because oh my god, it's so easy.
Yeah, like it's a mixture of font, layout, but also just writing style
Mm.
and how it's done. All of that makes it a very like there are books out there that say, "Oh, you can read this and play on the same day." I can believe that with Mecha Hack.
Yeah, I felt ready to run it, having read it, even just like having not I skipped over anything that was a table, but that's because you can reference those as you need them. You know what? Actually, though, if we're gonna talk about how easy to read it is, I have to know something because we've talked about this before, and you've
Mm.
had opinions on it. What do you think about the art?
I really enjoy the art. I
Oh,
like
so
it's
it's
just
a
black and white.
it's a
Oh,
win.
yes, yes. It is a win in the art department for me. Did you want to explain a little bit on why you were making mention of that?
Oh, so for those who don't know, Sun has a thing about art style as well as layout. I've definitely bitched about it myself a couple of times. See our CBR plus PNK episode to hear me complain about the color yellow. I am not joking. But Sun has issues with text wrapping and certain types of art style for various types of game. So when he's like, "Oh yeah, the game's super easy to read. I like its flow," I had to know what he thought of the art because he's been like, "Yeah, the game flows well and is easy to read, but I don't like the art. It's terrible." And I didn't read this section because it had art that I didn't like.
Oh, while I might not like the art, so art. It's not art won't never be terrible. It's just too not to my preferences. I have a thing with high detailed artwork, especially for like horror and the like.
Mhm.
I like more vague stuff. But the artwork here, I really like the art. It's made by Runehammer Games, for those that know of
Oh,
another RPG creator and artist and YouTuber.
Runehammer did
This
this.
is,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Runehammer did the artwork for this, yes.
Yeah, Runehammer's art is really good.
Yes, really nice black and white, very dirty and uh, kind of gritty. It looks nice. It's really nice and emphasizes a certain feel about this particular mech game. I really like D20 Roll Under.
Mm.
I like the feel of it and how you're not looking at a target number that is given out a lot of the time. You're looking at your abilities and they're the target number. You need to roll under your ability. Um, and yes, in this instance, this D20 roll under game does have modifiers, which a lot of roll under games, they are roll under games because they want to forego modifiers, but it does bring this in a particular way that I'm actually okay with. Um,
Mhm.
yep. For the mech people out there, this book foregoes the concept of having separate pilot stats to mech stats. Your pilot and the mech are, as in a narrative sense, symbiotically linked. So if your pilot ever does leave its mech, just use the same stats.
I can't necessarily disagree because you're not wrong, but I will say I think it's more that the pilot is the stats.
Oh yeah, yes. The pilot has all the stats and the like, and the mech, uses the same stats for
Yeah,
everything.
it's just the gear, really.
Yeah.
Because think about
So
it,
yeah,
if one pilot were to get into a different frame, the stats would remain because the pilot is what gives the bonuses to the stats.
yeah. So you could kind of see this in more of like a Pacific Rim kind of feel for those aware of that. Yeah, we said layout. I clear text, and one of the things it makes mention is order of actions for actions and like. How it's written out is how it plays out in sequence. So I really like that.
Hmm.
Runehammer artwork, really great. Yeah, no, they're just my upfront thoughts on it. Really well presented book.
Well, then go ahead and kick us off with some thematic support.
Um, so with this more action-packed mech game that's less nitty-gritty and the like, When you think mech games, maybe a little bit bean counting, thinking it's like, oh, okay, armor points and the like. You take that armor off. I got damaged here, and they're like, no, no, you don't have to worry about that thing. But one of the core things that you will be tracking that is linked to your mech is the reactor die. So the reactor die is basically your energy source. It's the thing that powers your mech and the like, but also it is the thing that you'll be using when you want to do some fancy abilities. Maybe you want to use a strong laser ability. And to do that, you can do your thing. It then will request you to roll your reactor die. You can consider the reactor die basically your stamina, it's your resource for doing fancy things. And in combat, it will be brought up more. But the thing with this resource, it's not just take 1 off, take 2 off, take 3 off until you get to 0. It's a usage die. And if you have listened to some of our other conversations, you know that I really enjoy the concept of usage die, which was introduced in the Black Hack. A usage die is just a single die that you have from 20 to 4. And whenever you're told to roll your reactor die, or you've used this resource in any way, you just roll the die. If you land on a 1 or 2, then you decrease that die to the next step. So if you rolled a 1 or a 2 on your d20, it's now d12, d10, d8, d4. And then when you roll a 1 or 2 on your d4, then you overheat and have to vent for a whole turn. So that can get dicey in combat. I really like the reactor die because it still has some of that tracking, and feeds into the concept of drawing power from your mech, but it's also a risk reward mechanic. You can choose to do some fancy stuff, but potentially you're going to run out of resources, and you're not quite sure if this is going to be your last use of this fancy ability.
Yeah,
I
no,
really like it.
I definitely agree. I think that the fact that it's a dice actually works really well for a mech combat game because when it comes to the stresses of combat, you can't always be 100% sure when your equipment is going to fail you. And the idea that it's left up to a chance of a die really makes, especially when you're getting desperate, it feel just that much more tense. Because, yeah, just like you said, you never know when this is going to be your last use.
Yeah, and you can think of it in like the mech anime representations where you're always pushing forward, and you're just going to keep going and trying to find more of that sheer will to push forward. You can kind of see it in the usage die kind of thing. You can keep pushing because you don't know when you're really going to run out, type of thing.
Yeah.
Mechanically, sure, oh, I've got a 50% chance on a D4 to finally run out, at least for a little bit. But yeah. What about you?
For me, I really like the damage die is linked to the chassis of a mech. It really makes it feel like the scale of a mech matters. I'm sure
Okay,
that
yeah.
BattleTech fans are currently being like, "What the fuck do you mean I can't strap an AC-10 to the lightest mech in the game and be super speedy with big gun?" To which I say that super speedy with big gun is a bad idea. The urban mech is trash, and you all know it. You literally call it a trash can. It's literally a trash can with a fucking cannon strapped to it. We all know this. But
Honestly, I didn't know if you were going to bring this up, but
yeah. No, but I really do like that, bigger, heavier frames can equip, understandably, bigger, heavier hitting guns. So while that might be the same model of gun, like, say you have a laser axe and your enemy in a smaller chassis also has a laser axe, sure, that makes sense. Your bigger laser axe is going to do more damage. That just, makes sense to an extent. It's just a different scale of the same type of equipment. It's the difference of, only being able to strap a minigun and being able to strap a rotary grenade launcher to your mech.
yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to understand why the damage die is linked to the mech and not the weapons. And the weapons have their own little thing, which we'll get onto probably later.
Yeah.
I really, yeah, I really like that.
No, I think it's a good feature, and I've known games that slightly experimented with things like this, but nothing ever done directly this way. And I think damage die being linked to a class is also potentially a fun idea, as opposed to hit die. Although hit die is also linked to chassis in this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Since you're talking about damage die linked to mechs, I'm just going to go with the rest of the stuff. Yeah. For those that are more in the OSR sphere or have played older games, yeah, think of the mechs as classes, and the classes provide your hit die. So, what will be used to roll your hit points as you continue to level up, and your starting hit points, your damage die, as Oscar just said, and your reactor die as well. So now as a brawler mech, you have a D8 hit die, a D8 damage die, and a D6 reactor die. So just from that, you can go, okay, brawler's got more hit points, going to do more damage, but can't use too many fancy things because they'll drop down to a D4 immediately after on a drain. And I really do like how a lot of those core stats are linked to the mech and done in a very simple way that mech games can definitely get into, especially if they do lean into the more technical and technical and rules heavy way of doing things. And yeah, the mechs also do provide two starting feats or abilities.
Yes.
That also round out the mech / class and probably helping you decide which of the mechs you want to actually choose.
Yeah.
And yeah, honestly, yeah, just how the mechs are done there, I really think that adds to it because yeah, in mech games, you're focused on you're choosing your mech, and so if most of the core bits of the mech are connected to the actual mech, but you don't have to do much else beyond that, I think that's a nice approachable way of doing things. I don't have to now go stat out my loadout of weapons and get these heating modules and this shielding and the like. And then I just choose a pilot to get a slight stat boost to some things and then an extra feat. Cool. I'm ready to go, basically. Nice and simple.
It is. It is. Another thing I really like about the game, thematic wise, is the way that boss fight rules exist. In the GM section, there's a set of rules that basically explain ways to tweak an enemy to make them noticeably harder, in a way that would make a solo boss fight stand a chance against a team of players. Because otherwise, players would normally just roll over and stomp them. And this is a good set of rules to say, all right, just take what we normally have and don't just use a high level enemy. Make them genuinely harder in this way to make it so that players will have a harder time fighting them, such as giving them 2 actions per round. There are other rules, but that was just the first one that came to mind.
Yes. No, yeah. The GM's guide is really good. Provides a lot of stuff. And yeah, like this is a very approachable, filled mech game.
It is. Well then, are you ready to talk about the combat?
Yes, mech games. It's gonna be about combat. Let's get on to combat. Do you want to start, or shall I?
I'm down to go, but if you have things in particular you want to bring up, feel free.
Okay, so the first thing to note, I really like how the Mecha Hack has simplified combat actions and the like. So in other games, you might have an action, a move action, a bonus action, if you do have it, a free action. The Mecha Hack says you got 2 actions. You can, with those 2 actions, attack, move, test an attribute, or use an item or ability. There's other things you could do, but generally, all things you could do fit within those categories. Work with the GM if there's anything else. If, with that, you might go, oh, wait, I can attack twice? Yeah, hell yeah, go for it. I can just dash across and say, yeah, sure, why not? I can use multiple items in one. Yeah, that's fine. But if you do that, you will have to roll your reactor die. That's the trade-off of being like, oh yeah, I'm going to definitely swing my axe twice. Yeah, okay, fair enough, but you're going to have to roll your reactor die for that. Movement in combat. You might think mech games, okay, grid, hex, a square, where we are moving grid by grid. By default, Mecha Hack says no. Mecha Hack is more of a cinematic kind of mech game, so they provide range bands, close, near, far type of thing. But the Mecha Hack does have your back and provides a conversion of squares, and also I appreciate this as a non-freedom person. Measurement in meters if you need more actual real-world units. So in terms of like a tactical way, anything squares are just counted in 1, and each square is 10 meters. The range band's close, near, far distance. To move, you just spend 1 action to move into a different range band. So, it provides you a grid saying to get to a near distance, move once. To get to a far, move twice. Anything beyond that is distant, you're going to need to move at least 3 or beyond. And it provides a nice grid space for that. They're the things I immediately want to get out there. Just the 2 action system. I really like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Also, did you mention that it has to be the same action for the reactor die and not just using 2 actions?
Yes, the same action.
Because I did notice that you were listing like doubles a lot, but I wasn't sure if you ever said the word if you do the same. But yes, so yeah, that's for you Pathfinder fans out there. This game did it first. Wait. Hold on, let me check. When was this published again? 2018.
2018.
When did Pathfinder 2 come out?
I'm not quite sure, but yes.
Neither am I.
That's a good thing to mention. It's kind of in the same vein of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, where you have 3 action points type of thing. Smaller amount, but still.
It's like
it provides you the freedom to decide. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then you already mentioned actions occurring in the order they're written earlier as well, back during the beginning.
Yeah.
The example given is that if you have an ability that lets you take a use action to allow someone on your team to take an action out of turn, it is you use your action, your teammate gets to use their action, then it goes back to you, time-wise.
Yeah. It provides a nice, clear example. So there will be no ambiguity. So you can just go through things nice and easy. In terms of initiative, when combat does occur, every mech rolls initiative, which is testing their mobility, i.e. dex for the dragon people out there, or systems, which is more like a perception kind of stat.
Systems
Whichever
is your computer
higher.
skill.
Yeah, it's a computer skill. So are you quick on the draw, or did your scanners let you know ahead of time type of feeling? If you succeed, because all you need to do to succeed is just roll under those stats, then you go before the enemies. If you fail, you go after the enemies. So it's a simple players go before, after enemies, and you decide amongst yourselves within the same initiative bracket.
So yeah, no, definitely, and it's pretty fantastic. And during that initiative, time is tracked in terms of moments. It doesn't give a unit, but you could assume them to be roughly 6 seconds for the following reason. Because the other thing that it tracks is minutes. This is more for narrative stuff. 10 moments makes up 1 minute, so, 6 second turn. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So,
six turn, or, typical 10 round exploration turns, which is pretty nifty stuff.
yeah. I like the way they explain that because it also tells you that they don't. It's not about that, but if you need a system, yeah, it's just moments and minutes. You're in a very intense situation. You're thinking by the action type of thing, and kind of leans into a more fast-paced, action-packed mech feeling. For those wondering, with the attacking and defending, yep. Most of the time, you'll be testing your power to just attack an enemy. And when an enemy is attacking you, you're testing mobility to avoid taking damage. So you're rolling to avoid damage. The enemies
Yes.
aren't attacking you.
And that is definitely a nifty thing.
Mm. The other thing that I would want to mention in combat is bringing up the modifiers that the Mecha Hack does for the roll under system.
I mean, should we just say modifier? Isn't there only like one?
Yes, there is one, but there's two instances of it, I should say.
Oh, all right. Yeah, go for it.
So, enemies, like you, have a hit die. This determines their strength and damage and the like. And when you're facing stronger enemies, like you're level 2 mech, and you're facing an enemy has 5 hit die, this is a stronger enemy to you, and it's going to be more difficult. In that instance, whenever you're facing that enemy, attacking or defending and the like, you would add the difference between their hit die and your level, which in this case is 3. So whenever you roll to attack or roll to defend, you would add 3 to your die. The other instance of adding is when you wield heavy weapons. Heavy weapons like beam rifles, chain guns, and rocket launchers are considered heavy and require two hands to wield. You add 2 to both your attack and your damage rolls with heavy weapons. So it's more difficult to aim and attack, but they'll deal more damage. I appreciate the simplicity with the modifier thing, because a lot of roll under systems because they're going to the roll under, they try and avoid modifiers. So I was interested to see Mecha Hack do that, and why they did it. It's like, oh, okay, I can see you trying to get the speed up of most of the time you're just looking at your stats type of thing, but in this instance, we do have a modifier, but you don't have to worry about it too much unless you are wielding heavy weapons or dealing with much stronger enemies.
I will say, I genuinely think if they had added more modifiers, situation like ones where you actually have to subtract as well as add, that this method of applying modifiers might have become a little bit overcomplicated.
No, I'm glad they just went with you just add it to the roll and that's it. Because if they were doing minus, subtraction and addition, at that point, it will get a little bit cumbersome. Just like a standard rollover type of thing.
Yeah. That said, I do have a couple of things that I do not believe I heard you mention. These are pretty standard stuff combat wise. Well, one thing actually is a pilot scale in this game for mech combat is 1/10 the scale of mech combat. And pilots can't hurt mechs, but mechs insta-gib pilots. You are giblets after the mech is done with you.
Yeah.
And then another thing in melee, to be in melee, you have to be within close range of your target. You have disadvantage on ranged attacks against both close and distant enemies. This means that even while someone's trying to stab you, you can still shoot someone in the near and far range bands, which is interesting, I think. Not a lot of games do that.
Yeah, yeah. And I do like how it says, even enemies far away from you, because you're being harassed by a melee combatant at the same time.
Yeah, well, actually, no. This disadvantage is constant in all situations. You always have disadvantage to attack an enemy in the distant range band.
Oh, I must have read that wrong. Um, oh, yes. So, yeah, ranged attacks against close and distant enemies. So, enemies that are up next to you and enemies that are at least 3 move actions away from you. So, near and far don't have the disadvantage.
For people wanting square numbers, it's 18 or more squares or 90 or more meters at distant range band, because it does, yeah, like you said, it gives you both a square and meter conversion. So so when it says you can get tactical with this combat, you can get very tactical.
Yeah, if you don't like the more theater mind range band thing, yeah, go to squares. Like I would probably run it with squares myself, because I do like a little bit of that. Or I would at least do some card based, with the fact that Runehammer did the ICRPG kind of feeling to it. Other thing that I have with combat, you mentioned bosses. Cover. Cover is cover. If there's something that can be used as cover, it is considered cover. And if people are using the cover, disadvantage against range attacks. This is nice and simple. So it can be easy to just determine what is cover and what isn't. And hopefully players will actually use cover then. It's like, oh, a building. Yeah, would that be enough cover? Yes, that's cover. I like how it's like, no, there's no half cover, 3/4 or anything. Sure, you can make the cover potentially weak after a couple shots, but that's up to you.
Yeah, these are close to my favorite cover rules I've come across, but they aren't my absolute favorites to date that I've read. My favorite is also that cover is cover. Either you can put something in between your body and the bullets flying at you, or you fucking can't. If you are in cover, you cannot be shot. That's my favorite cover rules ever. Cyberpunk Red is a trip. But no. Also, I don't think you mentioned this, and I'm not surprised you didn't. Opportunity attacks exist in Melee.
Yes, that was going to be in my criticism section.
Yup.
Yeah.
No.
It's there.
Yeah.
But, for those that play D&D and, other traditional games, opportunity attacks are there. If they move out of your reach or out of your range band, you can take a swipe. But hidden mecha and enemies don't provoke opportunity attacks.
Yep. And then everyone can opportunity attack, because using an improvised it's a mech, so I'm going to put big quotes around this unarmed attack. Rather than having a fixed damage die, it lowers your damage die by 1 tier. So a d6 drops down to a d4, a d8 to a d6, so on and so forth.
So it still makes those very heavy mechs with d10 damage still do d8 damage with just their fists.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, it makes the scale of the mech feel important. It's why one of the many reasons I like the damage die being tied to the chassis.
And you don't even need to see it as scale for at least the melee aspect of it. It could be, motors and the like for being able to swing those weapons harder and the like. But yeah, definitely. For me, the last real point is just, health and, dying and the like. You have hit points, and once you go to 0, your mech becomes disabled. All disabled mech can't take actions until they repair, automatically fail all tests. And when when your mech is disabled, you need to roll on a table to see what occurs. And you're disabled until you can complete a long rest. Yes. And when you roll on the disabled mecha, there is an option. A lot of the things are just like your comms are down, you can't communicate. So that means that is the one that I like the most out of this D8 table. Your comm systems are down, you can't communicate because you're all playing in mechs across, hundreds of meters, and you're all talking on your radio. In this instance, your just radio silent. I love that. I just really like that concept.
Yeah, it
Maybe
is a
because
good
I
one.
don't play enough mech games or games with radios, but I just really like that concept. You're alive and all that, but you just can't talk.
I'm gonna make a few more notes again on just like some mechanical aspects, but there's a reason for this in my criticisms, so I'm just
Okay.
gonna rapid fire these as best I can. So
Yep.
crits that you roll, that being a 1 on the d20, deal double damage. Crits that fail to dodge, that being a 20 on the d20, will double damage you take, and make you roll your reactor die if you take critical damage, which is actually, I think, a nice extra thing about how the reactor works.
Yep.
Yeah, so not only is cover, yeah, it's advantage on dodges and disadvantage to hit because it's all you rolling for that, not the GM.
Yeah.
Difficult terrain exists. It takes 2 squares or double the distance to move. Or double the actions to move if you're using range bands. This is actually one of the things that I think translates poorly to range bands, but it's not too terrible.
For me, yeah, it would cost, as it states, it costs 2 actions to move in that, range band. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yes, fair enough.
Yeah, but unlike with squares where you're tracking square by square, you can't be like, okay, if this whole area around me is, difficult terrain, I can't half move it
Yeah.
and then save. Yeah, but anyways, armor is a feature in this game. You have a number of armor points. You may sacrifice them to reduce incoming damage. You can sacrifice as many as you want, reducing the damage as much as you want, but once an armor point is spent, you lose it until you take a rest. If you have no armor left, you take damage like normal. We did cover the reactor die and how it's a usage die that goes down, and overheating. Overheating does not mean you're dead, you just cannot take actions and have disadvantage on all tests, so you can even still make dodge tests. And then you skip your next turn to vent the heat. And then when you do that, you return to normal with your reactor die, a d4 once again. And then one of the interesting things about overheating is that to overheat, you need to only roll a 1 or 2, meaning that, once you hit the d4, meaning that you always have a 50% chance to overheat once you hit the d4.
Yeah, so you'll need to complete a rest to remove that default limitation on your reactor die.
Yep. Then resting, short rests give back 1 hit die worth of HP, 1 tier of your reactor die, and you regain all your armor. It takes about an hour, and you cannot go beyond any of your maximum values, so you can't go beyond your maximum reactor die. Long rest takes everything back up to max, takes 8 hours. You can only long rest once every day. I'm going to assume they mean 24 hours because I'm the only person crazy enough to say that it's an 18-hour day on this planet because I like that kind of dumb bullshit. 56-day years, 18-hour days, baby.
I like the vagary of once a day, but yeah,
but they
24
are
hours, yeah,
giving
sure.
fixed hour amounts is the thing.
Yeah, fair enough.
Milestone XP is in the game, determined by the GM. You level up when you gain 1 hit die of HP. You roll a 20 for each attribute, and if the result is higher, increase the attribute by 1. You get modules for your mech at levels 3, 6, and 9, and your max level is 10. And that's all the stuff I have in this section, just the cleanup before we move on to standouts. And this is going to come up later in... this is going to come up a bit later, I think, in criticisms. I believe...
Okay.
I have something for this. So,
okay.
Your
I just wanted to
standout...
make mention of the gaining level bit. I just looked at it going, the to level 10 and the 369 to get a new fancy ability type of thing. I was just kind of reminded of Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Oh, yeah.
And also the
369 of your expert
milestone
levels.
thing. Yeah, and the milestone thing where by default you do a single adventure and then you level up. Same thing here. You do a
I
single mission and then you level up.
don't believe that's in the book at all. It says it's determined by your GM.
Ah, okay. I am using then information from the second book that Mecha Hack gave.
Ah, okay, yeah, I don't have any second book. I only have the core book.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
because actually
fair
this
enough.
is in my complaints as well, is that exact type of leveling.
Okay. Well, we can get go back to that once we get there. Um, Standouts.
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
kind of hijacked combat there towards the end, so why don't you start us off?
so besides like just the speed of reading and all that, I really like how it kind of eschews like the fancy things that you can like attach to your mechs and all that. It keeps it simple and makes them modules. These are the things that you'll get when you level up, and they come in 3 categories: offensive modules, defensive modules, and utility modules. Um, Examples of these modules are, a chest beam. As an attack action, test power. If you succeed, one close enemy takes 1d8 damage and is pushed to a near range. Roll your reactor die. So, you can have all weapons and the like. With the defensive one, uh, a nano shield. As a use action, regain 1d4 armor points. Roll your reactor die. You'll see a lot of them will probably say, roll your reactor die.
Mm.
Utility mode, rocket fists. No, actually, vehicle mode.
Oh,
As a
yeah.
use action, enter vehicle mode. Roll your reactor die. You ignore difficult terrain, have advantage on mobility tests, and reduce all movement by 1 action. You cannot attack until you use an use action to exit the vehicle mode. So you can just be a transformer once you get to at least level 3.
This truly is the mecha game of all mecha games for every type of mecha.
I do like Sentry Turret as well. No, not Sentry Turret. There is Jump Jets is always fun. As a move action, move instantly to a far location without provoking opportunity attacks and ignoring difficult terrain. Just dance around the battlefield.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
One of my immediate standouts is the fact that this game has a monster math table, meaning that there's a monster maker. Let's go. It provides a wonderful table from 1 to, I believe, 10 on the hit die for how all of the monster math works, and then goes on to provide you 34 enemies pre-built to give you examples of how you can tweak it or use it as is. I like a good monster maker. I love a diverse monster list, and I think having both in your game is a good thing. And while 34 may not be diverse, I've certainly seen games with far fewer monsters as a selling point. So I definitely get a kick out of this.
Yes, no. The Mecha Hack is one of my favorite examples of a monster list or an enemy list, and providing the information on how they scale and the like. It's really fun and
As well
super
as
easy
scaling
to
up,
read as well.
yeah. And you can also scale up old enemies by just adjusting them with the monster math table.
And we should emphasize this monster math table is not the matrix that you might be thinking it is.
Oh yeah, no, it's a small thing that just basically, I think it says 1/4, 1/2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it has hit die, damage die, and another thing I can't remember off the top of my head.
If I just go back to it, yep. Enemy damage and HP. Enemy hit die 1 to 10. The damage typical of the hit die. The max HP typical of the hit die. So just off the top of your head, you can just look at that. But yeah, it's really easy to stretch those pre-built 34 monsters that they give you, and they give you, about 5-ish per hit die. So
It doesn't
you've got
scale
to
quite like that. It's 5
no
for the first 4, then 4, then 2.
for yes, and then two for a hit die 8, and then it goes back to oh no, yeah, 2 for hit die 9 and 10. So yes, once you get to the higher ones, it gives you less examples. But I do like that they provided a good cluster of them for at least the lower levels at the start.
No, yeah, it is
Um,
a fantastic monster list and a fantastic monster math table combined. I love it.
yeah. My other standout was the monster list, reactor die. I just love usage die, and I think this is a good example of using them. Um, so for me, I like the simplicity of how they have done, weapons and
Hmm.
the items, consumables. Because your damage die is linked to your mech now. What are weapons? Are they just flavor?
Pretty much.
Yes and no. Weapons come in a couple categories. Well, equipment. You've got your comlink, so you can actually communicate with your fire team. And weapons come light melee weapon, heavy melee weapon, light ranged, heavy ranged, light armor, heavy armor, shield. That's the basic equipment. Heavy weapons add 2 to attack and damage. That's the only difference. They are two handed. Um, and that's all they do. Weapons then may also have qualities, which are more specialized versions of these weapons. And these qualities are just things that may give an extra boost when doing something. A heavy, chainsaw blade, does a standard 2 attack and damage and the like. But what about a chainsaw blade, a plasma chainsaw blade? This weapon, plasma weapons, cannot be reduced by armor or shields. So that's us just piercing damage, basically. Thrown. This is only for light melee weapons. You can attack near enemies with this weapon, which returns to your hand immediately after the attack. Cool. A chain blade or something or the like. And these are very, there's only a couple. I think there are 8. Yes, 8. But with modules, since I didn't make mention of it there, and also in the quality section, it does encourage you, no, not the quality section, but with modules, it does encourage you to create your own custom modules and gives you guidelines on how to do it as well. Because, there's only about 8-ish modules for offensive, defensive, and utility. But it provides you easy guidelines of, okay, if you want to make an offensive module, look at the other, couple offensive modules there. Make sure you don't do double the damage of other ones. Does it require you to roll your reactor die? Maybe you should if you're doing a very powerful thing. Is it active? Is it passive? I really appreciate the guidelines there, just to make this single book still scale with play. You can make your own modules. You can start really customizing your mechs.
Yeah, no, you really
Um,
can customize your mechs. There is a lot to that. I definitely agree.
yeah. Oh, that's the thing I wanted to make mention with the consumables. Explosive rounds. As a use action, load explosive rounds. Your range attacks now deal an additional 1d6 damage until your reactor die is downgraded. I really like how the, I guess, a reload or how much you can use this is tied into just the reactor die.
Yeah, it's a pretty good thing to have, especially more reactor die mechanics. I really like the reactor die.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah, no.
I
What about you?
So another standout for me is the fact that I mentioned it before briefly. All the damage die, the HP, the reactor die, all being linked to your mech. This is something I like a lot. It reminds me of the concept of ego and morph in Eclipse Phase Second Edition. And it sidesteps a lot of the bioessentialist stuff so common in fantasy games because the pilot's just a background. So your mech having, your body having being a matter of HP and damage that you deal, effectively your class being those things rather than because you're a dwarf. I like that a lot, and it's you see in sci-fi games like things like this tend to be a lot better because, like for instance, in Eclipse Phase, the body that you are in determines your HP, the amount of damage you can take before you die, and how much damage you can take before you suffer a wound, which is a whole thing. But your ego, your character, your pilot, the thing that is your stats, is linked to all your skills in Eclipse Phase. It's your attributes in this game. It makes a clear, distinct separation that doesn't fall for, well, I'm playing, I'm not playing the six-armed pilot, so I don't get the alien six-arm bonus to my maneuvering. It's all about your training, and I could go on very long rants about how I think all stats should be, any stat bonuses should be derived from background, and this game does it straight up, no bullshit, easy as hell. Fantasy, get your shit together, for fuck's sake. This is I could go on a tangent, but I won't. I'm gonna keep it limited to this game before I start complaining about certain things. Another thing that I think this game has that I really really like is it has a very good mission and environment and condition table to generate all sorts of very very different and unique missions for your players to enjoy. It's good for a no-map style game. It's good for low prep. It adds to replayability because some of those tables you roll multiple times on the table and select each row to determine something specific, and then they're just put into like kind of grouping. So environment could be like environmental hazards mixed with like it's a city, or is it space? Is it junkyard, whatever. And conditions could be like, oh hey, do it in this many rounds, defend this thing. Like the background before your fight, so that way you don't cause a ton of collateral damage, or you need to defend something, so that way it doesn't just devolve into a punch fest.
And since you were speaking of cities and environment and all that, in the same section of the Game Master's area, it does make mention of some optional variant things. One of them that you did make mention of was the boss fights. One thing I wanted to make mention of is collateral damage. Game Masters may wish to consider the extent of collateral damage in your mech battles, especially in heavily populated urban areas. So you can specify a limit to the number of buildings that can be destroyed before your mission fails. Each building has 10 HP and 10 armor points, and enemy attacks targeting buildings automatically hit. And when you make attacks and your mecha rolls a natural 20, which is a critical fail, they instead deal their damage to nearby buildings. So, there's small little variant rules in there and optional rules that you can apply to specific missions. In this case, you just making mention of like defend a city or something like that. Now you've got a city health bar, basically.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's a great thing to bring in, like the collateral damage that mechs hypothetically cause, anyways. It's one of the reasons why I like all these tables. It really does like let you go as deep as you want, which again, it's great for the kind of no map concept. And then in terms of my love of all in books, I very much enjoy that a setting is provided. Always nice to see. So you get enemies, classes, setting, GM rules, and tips, and it's all less than 50 pages.
Yeah. And the setting, for those wondering, it is page 39, 40, 41. That's it. 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
You're told the history of this single planet, Lodestar Alpha, the 3 factions. The 4 factions, technically, the 3 factions, and then the 4th one being the aliens, the Voidmaw, and then a couple tiny locations. And then that's it. So very easy to attach yourself to the setting. It's a nice, simple thing. 3 factions, they're all warring about. And now you got some aliens in the mix.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. I mean, And then I've talked about it before. This game actually, I think it is one of the few games that manages to really bring about a good way to be run, either in a tactical or theater of the mind style. It's I've seen games claim this. I think this is a game that really manages to pull it off quite competently.
And then one thing I did want to make mention, since it's in the GM section, I'm looking there, is there's a loot table. So a little bit of inspiration when you want to give out something, and makes mention of something that you might not have thought of. Sure, there's items and weapons and the like, but also makes mention of a one-shot module. So all those fancy things that you get at level up, maybe you want to throw out a cool little thing where, yeah, you get to use one of those cool level up things once. I just like that. It's just another way to expand the loot table without creating a huge new range of things. You can just use the old stuff that was already printed in a different section. And also
Yeah.
maybe that allows the player to go, oh, actually, I really like this. When I can level up, I'm going to get this.
So, that said, criticisms.
Well, you made mention of it. Yeah, no, it doesn't specifically state, as far as I can see, that you level up upon mission finishing type of thing. You could infer that definitely, but yeah, and
You
also
can't infer that in just the core book. One moment, I will actually get you a very specific page quote here. Page 9, gaining levels, the first paragraph. You can improve your mecha by defeating enemies and overcoming obstacles. For every significant milestone reached, you gain 1 level. This is mostly left to the GM's discretion.
yes, and then if you go then to the game master section, it does talk about how you are doing missions, and that's where game master's running the Mecha Hack will find tools, blah blah blah. This is where I guess I am using some of my Shadow of the Demon Lord knowledge and how milestones work. It's like, oh, missions are adventures. Therefore, missions, adventures are milestones. But
Yeah.
that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
One that I have that I personally like, it doesn't affect me, but I'm aware, and I did bring it up before, is, yeah, for those that like roll under D20 systems so they can avoid using modifiers, you don't escape it entirely. If you're using heavy weapons and if you are facing enemies that are a much higher hit die than you, you will have to add a number to your roll. I am happy that it's just adding to your roll, and that's it. But yes, that is a thing that you do have to, keep in mind.
Yeah, it's definitely there.
I do like that it's an add and not a subtraction.
Yeah, definitely.
If they had one modifier, I'm glad it's an add.
Yeah, agreed. One of
And
my
since I might as well just throw it out there, opportunity tax.
Oh yeah, because you don't like those.
No, I don't see their purpose here, especially for a more cinematic playstyle. I
Because
don't see
they're
their purpose.
incredibly
Yeah.
common, is why.
Yes, it's a traditional thing, and this was based off the Black Hack, which is within the vein of traditional games. Yes.
One thing on my end, so you may remember I made a point of going through like a mechanic by mechanic almost every aspect about how combat works. I'm not sure this game qualifies as rules light. It has a lot of rules. It's not very dense per se, but it does have a look. We've reviewed light on this, podcast. We've seen how rules light can get. I'm not sure that this qualifies necessarily. It wouldn't be very hard to get the general vibe of the game's rules, but it already has a lot before you start dipping into gear specific rules, which I don't count against a rules light game. I'm not going to say it can't be run theater of the mind. I definitely think it can, and I think it would be very good for that, but it does have a lot of conditional rules and effects just in like the general course of combat with how crits work, rolling works, how you approach certain types of rolls and actions and what they can do. It does seem not quite to be rules light to me.
Okay, this is where I guess for me, sure, it's not a one pager, no, but with how natural, I don't want to say natural language, how easy it is to read and just absorb the information, I did not see it as a more denser game that it
Oh
could not be
no,
called rules light.
I don't think it's rules dense, but I think it is rule numerous.
I don't know. I would actually say I'm going to still put it within the uh, rules like category, even if it does have more like combat stuff. I Yeah, no, I'm still going to classify this as more of a light system. It's just not as extreme as other light systems I've read and played.
I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I've seen, you know, on the extremes of both ends, where, you know, I've seen games that provide you a rule for every conceivable possibility. And I've seen games that provide you no rules except for here's how dice work. And this definitely sits
Yeah.
in the middle of those, but I think it's, I mean, compared to a game like Cyber plus Punk, compared to Light, even engine wise, compared to Trophy, this game winds up just, I feel like, having a lot more specific rules.
Oh, sorry, I just blanked out there. Can you
Oh,
make me say that again?
yeah, I was saying, even compared to Trophy, this game has a lot more, like, specific rules, because Trophy basically has, like, 5 rules and then a bunch of safety tools.
Yeah, yeah. There are definitely more rules, especially since the emphasis here will be on combat. Um, but also, I don't think the rules hamper play in any way.
No, I don't think that they
Yeah,
hamper play either. I'm not saying that. I'm not sure it qualifies as rules light.
fair enough.
It's
I'm okay with
not
that.
as dense as Lancer, but Lancer's core engine is less dense than this. It's just all the other stuff that Lancer adds on to being tactical combat game.
Well, I would consider the core engine just to roll on the d20 and add a number maybe on a weapon
That's true. You
or
know what?
against
That's
an
fair.
enemy.
That's
That's
fair.
it.
No, yeah. No,
Yeah.
not as dense as Lancer, denser than probably Apocalypse Frame, a game we will inevitably be reviewing because I actually really like what Binary Star does.
Hmm.
Um, but this one's incredibly petty. But
Okay. Go
so
ahead.
for the reactor die, this game shows a dice chain of D20 down to D4. There is no
Yes.
reactor die larger than a D8. It is impossible to wind up with a D20 on your reactor die.
I believe if I check the modules, there was a module that allowed you to increase your
Yeah, but
reactor
could you
die.
increase it to a D20 from an 8?
No, I would definitely
Exactly.
say no.
So, like,
But
this is incredibly petty, but,
oh yeah,
like,
fair enough.
it's a good example of how usage die work. But considering that the reactor die is the only usage die, it seems a bit odd to list from a D20 down.
That's fair enough. But also, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it does provide clarity. It's like yes, you can go higher, and for the fact that it does provide space, it's like hey, create your own modules,
Hmm.
create
Yeah,
your own
you're
things.
not
Yeah.
wrong. Absolutely not. And then
Okay.
my other one, I've complained about milestone XP before. Normally I say, oh, this milestone XP isn't very bad because it explicitly states how it works, but an alternate system might be nice because some people might be turned off. This milestone XP system is the exact problem I have with milestone XP. This is how you wind up with stories where we've played 20 sessions and we're still level 1. We've killed like 90 things, and because we've gotten so much gear, our GM is just throwing big, strong enemies at us, but we don't have the HP, so when they hit us once and we die. This is exactly the kind. Again, I can't blame the author for the actions of bad faith actors, but this is exactly the kind of system that like makes people complain about milestone XP. The
That's fair
idea
enough.
that it's entirely set by the GM with no like external guidelines that players and GMs can agree on. And obviously, a good session zero and a good GM, you will set up agreed upon guidelines. But also the book could do it. We've seen a book do it. Like already, Into the Odd gives you very explicit milestones to hit. Things that are undeniable in how they function.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've complained about it before, but I just this is the example that is like this is why people don't trust milestone XP, and it's not anyone's fault, but it is rather explicitly the thing that people are like, I don't like milestone XP games and I refuse to play them, is because
Yeah.
systems like this get abused, and obviously that's a GM problem, but But no, that's all of my stuff.
The I have two left that I can think of.
Go for it.
One, just another thing that didn't need to be here, but it was here because I guess tradition proficiencies.
Oh yeah.
there's armor and weapon proficiency just to state it's like, yeah, you can use these well, but they don't need to be there. They just don't.
I mean, I don't know. A mech being only able to equip certain kinds of gear isn't that unusual.
No, that is fair enough. But with how I'm going to say streamlined a lot of these things were, with like just crunching everything down into the mech, I guess proficiency was just one of those things where it could have been definitely also just removed.
Yeah,
but that's fair enough. And the other thing was, while I do like the layout, while I do like how text is written and the like, there is some issues with sentences finishing in the next column.
Yes.
Choose a chassis. It's like, oh yeah, cool. Once you've chosen your chassis, roll for or choose your call sign.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, that stuff definitely. See, that's why I don't use column when I write my games.
No, columns can be great.
Columns cause this to happen a lot more frequently than no columns.
Oh, totally fair, but that's because people are not wanting to either commit to having their sentences and paragraphs just fit within a single column, i.e. editing or the like. Or they don't want to fill those white spaces with other stuff like new boxes and art and the like. That's what you use art for, to fill in the white space. Also to make it pretty, but easy way to fill in white space.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah. But no, beyond that, I really like the Mecha Hack. I don't really have any other real criticisms or little switches I'd do.
Then in that case, free design talk. I have a question for you. I'm going to save it for the end. If you bring it up first, then I won't ask.
Okay.
I really like the way the link between the pilot and the mech works. It's a good way to handle mind versus body in terms of game design, or even just person versus class. I mentioned it before, but you could refurbish this to work with a variety of games. With background gives you your stat bonuses, class gives you your functional stuff, because this is representative of training. And it gets rid of all the bioessentialist bullshit of orcs are naturally stronger all the time, but also naturally dumber all the time, which, let's be frank here, is one of the most blatantly offensive examples of race stat bullshit. I mean, you also get into the whole we're gonna have to do an episode on this, so I can just sit here and yell about it. But to keep it short, I just
quietly
and sweet,
sip my tea, going, yes,
yeah,
that's fair enough.
but no, to just be short and sweet. I think that this is a good way to handle it. Background gives you a unique ability. Background gives you your stats. Your class gives you your health. your damage, and proficiencies, take them or leave them depending on the style of game you're running. I think proficiencies aren't useless, but I'd rather play a game that I would rather play a D100 game where it's all about skills and proficiency is just your level in a skill. And I have to roll my broadsword skill to swing a broadsword, then be proficient in martial and simple weapons. So, yeah.
Yeah. For me, immediately, which I have done, but I would take the roll under, 2 action, usage die, and that's it. If I had to take just the smallest amount of things, roll under, 3 or 4 stats if I can. Usage die, 2 action. You have to roll your usage die to do the same action twice.
Yep.
I really like that. I think it provides a great foundation to build many different things upon that.
Tell me more.
I just really like
provide me an example of a way that this might be reasonably done, since you brought up my question before I got to it.
So, hypothetically, if you made a, let's say, game that might have been based off a game about scrolls and elder things.
Yes, my favorite game, Colors Beyond Time. It's a text adventure.
The old books, the archaic tomes, the decrepit paper. You might have 2 resources, a stamina and a magical resource. And to do more physical things, a lot stronger physical things, you would have to then roll your stamina usage die. And then eventually when you get to, roll a 4, then you become, tired. And you either need to scoff down a potion or just take a breather, i.e. like venting. Same thing with your magical. You need to cast out your spells. But maybe the spells have different levels to them, strengths. And that infers how you roll your magical die, your usage die. If it's a very strong, powerful weapon. No, actually, if it's a weak one, you roll your magical die at advantage. So you roll your usage die twice and just take the better one that hopefully isn't a 1 or 2. If it's a stronger one, flat, disadvantage. Now, when it's even stronger, you don't roll your usage die anymore. Just decrease it. That's one way you could mess around with the usage die, just hypothetically.
Yeah. Interesting. What a fun hypothetical example.
Yes, very, very hypothetical. Yeah.
Yeah, I straight up said the reactor die could be reflavored to some cool stuff. Tell them more, son.
Yeah. But no, yeah. And sure, if you want to get crazy with it, sure, there's other things, but we have talked about usage die being used for other things.
Yeah.
That is the core of what I would steal. And if I was being more closer to how Mecha Hack was built, I would steal how the enemies are built as well, because I really love how simple enemies are. Their name, their hit die, a little bit of flavor text to also infer how they kind of work, a trait that, makes them different, and then, 1 or 2 attacks, and just clearly stating what you have to test, their range and their damage. Really simple. I really like it. And maybe some attacks, have a recharge where, that people from like D&D will be aware of. You just have to roll like a 5 or 6 on a die after using it to see if you can use it again. I
Yeah.
really like how simple the enemies are, and yeah, I would steal that too if I was being more closer to um, the Mecha Hack.
Yeah, no, actually, that's something in mind too. If you were going to be making any kind of hack of the Mecha Hack, you can just rip that monster math table and probably the enemies and reflavor them or use it to make your own. And then it's backwards compatible using the thing. It's such a great tool.
Yeah.
For me, another thing is that actually, so I've probably never explicitly said this out loud on the podcast before. I hate classes in games. I find them pointlessly restrictive. However, the fact that the mechs functioning as classes in this game are basically a list of what you can use, your damage, your HP, and your reactor. And then modules are all the customization, and like from there, it doesn't like nothing changes from there except for the modules you get. I could find taking this and replacing it with okay, so like I know that like we both have mentioned before that we don't like proficiencies, but I find proficiencies being a here's what you are trained to use to not be a bad thing as long as you can pick up the ability to use other things later because again, I like unrestricted stuff. So having like a class be a background and then from there picking up abilities as you level, or just even a class being like a starting package. I actually really like that and I think that that could be repurposed into a lot of good like here's a good quick start fantasy game and in fact it reminds me a bit of some knave hacks I've seen. Explicitly Grave where you pick your character, you roll up your stats, and then so you pick your starting archetype, and I believe it has your stats for you as well as your starting gear. And then, from there you just go on and play the game. And seeing this, I could see that being fleshed out into something a little bit more mechanically focused. It would definitely drop out of the rules light area, though. Well, if I got my hands on it, at least.
Mm. Yeah. No.
I'm gonna hack the Mecha Hack.
No, exactly. Let continue the hack
I've
family.
already hacked a
Just
hack of a hack. I'll hack a hacking hack a hack a hack. Peter Piper picked a
yes,
peck of
yeah.
pickled peppers, and I hacked the Mecha Hack.
Mm.
It's been a big day for two
Uh,
people.
but no, yeah. Honestly, I don't. We've kind of said what I want to say about the Mecha Hack, and I know what I'm definitely taking from this if I was to ever hypothetically make anything with it.
Yep.
Um,
I mean, I have one last thing. I like the way weapon traits are done. That's dope. And I think that that should. I mean, I realize it's kind of just like a magical weapon system for sci fi, but you know what? It's a pretty damn good one.
yeah, it's nice and simple. Like it works really well, and yeah, when you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, that's just magic items. Yeah.
But yeah, no, and I'm also out of stuff. So is that all said and done?
uh, I just wanted to make mention of a single
Go for it.
ability from a mech
Go for
that I
it.
really liked. Where is it? Scout? No. Okay, it's in the supplementary book.
Oh, never
But
mind
since
then.
we're talking about mechs, I just like that there's an ability for a different mech where you can turn into a locked down artillery.
Oh, that is
So kind
fun.
of like a transformer, but you just clamp your feet down and now you're an artillery. I like that, but it's not in this book. So get the other one, which has a lot of good stuff. It's called the Mecha Hack Mission Manual and gives you um, crap, I didn't count, but it is well over 30. Actually, it might be 30 missions and then a bunch of new modular rules, including if you wanted to have pilot stats, on foot skills, and the like. If you wanted to get more of that out of the mech play and give a couple more things to it. But yeah, Mecha Hack, really fun. Definitely would encourage those that like mech games and maybe we don't want to go too complicated or technical, try this one out.
9 out of 10 would Mecha Hack again.
Yeah, exactly.
But with that being said, thank you for joining us today as we looked at the Mecha Hack. Join us next time for more indie tabletop discussion and design. I've been Oscar C. Tango, and joining me has been Sun Gone.
You can find me at sungone_ on Twitter, Sun on Start Playing Games, and Sungone on itch.io.
And you can find me at StrandedTTRPG on Twitter, Oscar C. Tango on startplaying.games, and Stranded Publishing on itch.io. You can find all of those links in the description. And remember, don't be afraid to adventure beyond the dragon.